Welcome, everybody, to the Synapse Philosophy Group. I'm your host, Dr. Haig John. We are on D.D. Palmer's 1910 book, The Chiropractor's Adjuster, page 513. And we are on the section called the liver. And, the liver, the first four letters are live. We just add an to it, which is the action of, right? So the action of living, it's such an important living organ. And, I had this, I just got to talk about this for a second. We were just in Cuba with a group of chiropractors. Peter Morgan and his Chiro Missions, they set that up, and it was amazing. And my talk was a talk that I got from Pasquale Sarasoli. And it was, we are chiropractors. We're not chiropractors. You know what I mean? I've heard other people say it, and it cannot be resaid more, really. Is that even my wife, I see she's a realtor, and the commercials on TV, they say realtor, connect with a realtor. And I love that. And, I think, you are all realtors that are on here. So let's use that term, tor, chiropractor, chiropractic, and use them properly and be proud of them. I absolutely love them. All right, that's my 11 cents, and I'm moving forward. We're having an awesome day today. I did an interview with Dr. Nancy Tarlow today, and we'll be posting that very, very soon. All right.
There's a quote about the liver from Barge that I'll have to find it. I know that Dr. Barge said something about the liver, and I'll have to remember.
I have read something from that. I can't remember it myself.
Play on words about the liver, and the liver is a human being, a liver, and the liver is an organ. And I'll have to see if I can find that quote from Dr. Barge.
Page 513.
513. Okay.
The more I practice chiropractic, the more I study. The more I know about and think about this subject, the more I become convinced that if you will give me the 5 upper dorsal and the cervicals, you can do what you please with the rest of the body and bring the fellow through without them.
That's a quote. And
that's a quote. Now, Dee did not say that.
No.
All right. Let's delineate those things. We'll go from there. The more I practice chiropractic, the more I'm convinced that the displacement of any bone may impinge upon that the displacement of any bone may impinge upon one or more nerves, more practically those of the vertebral column. Because of those connections with the short compact bundle of nerves known as the spinal column or trunk. These trunks start from the spinal cord by a series of root filaments spread out vertically like a fan. There are 2 of these series, each forming a thread-like root. These two roots unite and form a trunk, which we speak of as spinal nerve. And as such, it continues until it passes through the spinal canal, through the intervertebral foramen or groove. You could use a couple more commas in there. Oh, we got Chargel's back. All right, I'm just letting him in. This mixed spinal nerve and is quite short, as known in figure 8, where it is represented on the left and emerged from the foramen. But immediately gives off a branch of sympathetic ganglia. The reader will observe that this branch to the sympathetic ganglionic chain is part of the spinal cord, and it is composed of thread-like filaments which form 2 roots. These unite to form the spinal nerve, from which this short trunk are 3 other branches, one of which is recurrent branch and returns for the foramen junction canal to the spinal canal, where it is distributed to the spinal cord and the membranes. The rest of the filaments of this short spinal nerve trunk innervate the skeletal frame, muscles, and the skin, covering the trunk and limbs. The scalp is innervated by the nerves, the former by the somatic respiratory branch of the spinal nerves, in contradiction to the sympathetic nerves which innervate the viscera. He's saying that because there's so much that man missed out on top by saying the top four dorsals and the cervicals, there's so much more to this nerve system. You can't live without that. If they chopped you in half of the fourth dorsal, you would no longer exist, right? So that's what I think Didi's getting to. Now, he goes on about that for quite some time, and I feel I should skip a little bit.
You need the next. I think the next part is important. Next paragraph is good.
You read it.
The general distribution of the nerve branches from the short trunk is apparent in the lower 17 pairs of nerves, as well as in the 13 for which only the author of the above has use. And there's the direct slap, right? The more I study chiropractic, the more I see that the displacement of any bone projecting from the median line is likely to press against and impinge upon adjacent nerves, thereupon causing irritation. If the pressure be light, if the pressure be heavy enough to desensitize this nerve, then its carrying capacity is nil. So he's saying everything, all the nerves that exit the spine are important here, and any bone can cause an interference with the transmission of the information. And if it's heavy enough, then it's going to totally desensitize it.
This is what Didi says next.
That's Didi talking, right?
Now he says this: we might think the above remark a joke, intending it to be as a rub on someone, if the author had not followed it with, now, laying all jokes aside, there is no question but what the cervical region, the 5 upper dorsals, is the field of battle in every affliction and abnormality, no matter what it is. And by the way, it is the place which a good many chiropractors have neglected. Now, this is Didi again. He says, field of battle. We must have fancied that he was in a legal battle, fighting for the rights of his client or opposing his opponent and securing a just claim, or else he had just as much allopathy left in him, which had to be let out. There are very many diseases which are caused by displacement of the lower 14 true vertebra. So that was all. Listen, come on. There's a lot more going on in this nerve system. Don't fool yourself. Why do you think he put this in there? He doesn't mention who this is.
No. I think he's just making sure that people realize that there's discrepancies in things that are being taught. And he wants to make sure that his point of view is being fully represented here, and that it's bigger than that. Somebody's narrowing it down as far as he's concerned. And he says, it's bigger than just we don't want to limit it.
By this time, there might have been a dozen schools, you realize, already, maybe more. I don't know. Barry, do you have any numbers of that? I mean, there more than a dozen. Yeah, let's say that. He's saying, look, don't let this chump teach you one thing from this far and leave out all the other important things of the body, right? You got to keep the atlas clear. My office, people hold their atlas quite a long time, but they subluxate other vertebra too. And they need adjusting. I know I do. Let's put it in this sense of my body. But primarily, if your atlas is subluxated, you need. I just got re-X-rayed today, as a matter of fact. I'm so excited because I can't wait to look at the X-rays. But my buddy, Dr. Devin Perdue, he's my epic chiropractor. So he's been doing epic X-rays, and so I can't wait to look at him. I've got a lot of arthritis in my lower cervical. I've been hanging my head for so many years, texting neck, just like we talk to kids about. I've been doing as a chiropractor. So keeping my lower cervicals are one thing I always want to keep in check. How is the arthritis in my lower cervicals? I don't want to end up, there are a lot of chiropractors end up severely, with big problems in their lower neck, lower backs, bending over all the time. Close friend just had spinal surgery. One of my mentors had spinal surgery, and it's a big deal. We work hard on our backs, right? We got to get this thing right. So anyway, Bear, you just unmuted.
Did you have spinografts done or did you have x-rays done?
I had spinografts of my marvelous spine. That's a good question. Very, very good question. And yeah, I can't wait to play with them. It's really what it's all about. I can't really wait to play with them myself. So I haven't had x-rays done for me in quite some time. But I had a lot of great adjustments in Cuba. I did. I had, my occiput freezes up. I had some SOT work. I don't know really what you call it, but they adjust your cranials with a balloon in your nose. And it was pretty amazing. Did you have that done, Bob? Oh, yeah. You've had it done. It's pretty amazing. So they adjust their cranial bones from inside. Man, I think I'm happier. I don't know. I feel great. You're muted, Bob. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Did you have Henry do that?
Henry, yeah.
No, it was Adam.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Adam teaches the seminar. Adam teaches seminar. He invited me to actually come and speak at his seminar in Spokane, Washington. I'm like, that's a little far. I'm going to make it out of Spokane, though, because it's pretty cool out there. I've never been to Washington State. I'm going to do perfect time for a shameless plug. INNATE Adjusting, INNATE Newborn Level 1 and 2, Life University on campus, room C126 or something like that. So anyway, on campus, and I'm excited for that one. That's level 1 and 2. And we also will be filming, just so you all know, we're creating an online course. So we're filming it 4K, high quality. So this could be something we can have from coast to coast. You don't have to fly all over the place. Anyway, that's the end of the shameless plug.
I think you're talking about the cranial nerves that people and people forget that most chiropractors don't even know. I learned it, I think, from Jay Holder, that you can adjust the sphenoid. And Jay found that the cornu of the sphenoid and the cornu of the coccyx mirror each other.
Oh yeah,
those are the two ends of the meningeal the meninges attached there at the sphenoid and at the coccyx. And the sphenoid is really important. You can get it; it's right at the temple, and you can adjust the sphenoid, and it's very powerful.
I do a lot of cranial work. Level 3 is actually cranial for newborns, and I do a lot of cranial work. We also contact it from inside at the styloid in the inside the mouth, and it can be very, very painful. But from there, it hurts. My daughter doesn't love it. I do it on myself even, but it's one of those really important things. Is really, you're right. The sphenoid, it has to rock and move properly. The coccyx has to rock and move it. They're keeping tension on the spinal cord. Absolutely, positively. The pituitary gland doesn't function properly when only half of that pump might be working, whether it's one of the wings or what have you of the sphenoid. You're 100% on track. I've always, and a lot of people have said this, I didn't make this up, but the sphenoid is like the first cervical vertebra. It looks similar. It's just blown up in a whole different way. I'm enamored by the sphenoid. You're right on target, Alan. Absolutely. But that was cool, man. I really had a very interesting adjustment. I would do it again. I mean, I'm like, yeah. Anyway,
if you need it.
Well, if you need it, I feel like I always need it. I feel like I wish I had more chiropractic. Well, we have a lot of good chiropractors around me, but I want more. I want to be cared for, of course, like all people do. That's why we need more chiropractors out there. So whoever's listening to this, and I know we have a lot of lay people. We have people from around the world. We just hit 13,000. I think we're at 14,000 subscribers now, which is pretty cool. And so that's people around the planet.
It's quite a
and
legacy.
it's we need more chiropractors, and we need more chiropractors educated properly. I'm just saying it. I want chiropractors to be in every labor, and my mission right now is to have a chiropractor on rounds in labor and delivery in every hospital in the country and then the world. Okay, that is literally my mission, and I'm working towards it right now. It's why I teach the seminar that I do. It's why we're recording it. It's what we need to do for the profession to get them so their people are comfortable adjusting newborns and pregnant mommies. Okay, ICPA does a good job at it. This is another level. So we need that in our profession. So I want to see this, of course, happen within my lifetime, and I really know it will. Period. And I declare it.
I listened to an hour of Maxine last night. She did a talk in Lisbon, Portugal, and she said, we need more tours that do the tick. So same thing.
The Maxine McMullen? I knew Maxine. She was wonderful. I did one of the first series of the ICPA seminars.
Awesome. We have a page called Tick in the Tour, and it has that picture behind you on it. It's one of our Facebook pages we just never use. We should use that a little bit more. I don't know what for what. I have too many pages already to keep up with, quite honestly. Jeez Louise. Okay. Alan, would you like to read next?
Sure. We're going to keep going here on 514.
Or should we jump over to the spine, the nervous system? I think we should even kind of skip that a little bit. And then go to, reflux action. See, a lot of this is the science class when Dee Dee's teaching neuroanatomy, which is very important, okay? But do we want to read it? Does it work great for what we're doing right now in the moment? I don't think so. Nerve tracing is a good one here on page 518.
You want to go there?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
518.
Unless you guys have any other. Yeah.
I'm good.
Go ahead. Can you read that?
Sure. We're on page 518 of the Chiropractor's Adjuster. Nerve tracing. Among the principles developed by me is the art of tracing sensitive, inflamed, swollen, contracted nerves to and from the place of impingement and the organ or portion affected. This tracing, when made by an expert, is not only explanatory, but educational. Chemical analysis may determine the constituent qualities of urine in such diseases as nephritis, gravel, diabetes, and Bright's disease, but it does not locate the cause. A chiropractor, by palpating, determines the lesion in one or both of the kidneys, then follows the sensitive nerves of innervation to their origin in the vertebral column. By a unique movement, he releases the impingement caused by the slightly displaced vertebra. The nerves freed from pressure perform the function of innervation in a normal manner. Several writers corroborate Donglason's statement that, quote, irritation is indicated by tenderness or on pressure over the spinous process of one or more vertebrae or parts of the sides of the spine, unquote. He nor they ever mention that the nerves of innervation are liable to be impinged upon by slightly displaced vertebrae or other bones, a condition that is daily being demonstrated by chiropractors. By nerve tracing, we determine which one or both of the kidneys are not performing their normal function. This of itself would seem wonderful to the practitioners of other schools. But we do not stop here. By palpation, we determine the position of the vertebra, which to a chiropractor is very important. The chiropractors are daily demonstrating upon living subjects without vivisection that there are communicating nerve fibers which have not been noticed by anatomists. We no longer have use for such statements as, quote, sympathetic affections between two or more organs, so that the affection of one is transmitted to the other, or others unknown. I'm thinking that probably is intended to be affliction, not affection.
I think you're right about that.
That's the end of the quote. Chiropractors trace this quote, unknown, unquote, connection by following nerves from the same foramen to different parts of the body. We do not need such terms as reflex action, reflex function, reflex paralysis, reflex neurosis, or reflex spasms. Nerve tracing explains this unexplainable explanation of vicarious commutation. There is nothing more explanatory or convincing to the prospective student or patient than nerve tracing. There are no two persons who have the same outside appearance, no two who are the same age, no two who are alike in their osseous makeup, no two whose nerves are either sensed alike or pass through the same foramina in the same manner, with the same amount of pressure. Therefore, we never find precisely the same combination with exactly the same symptoms. And I think that paragraph is really important in that he's saying, he's going through all this stuff about how it all works and nerve tracing, and then he's saying, and it's important, the nerve tracing is important to each individual that you put your hands on, because no two people are identical. No two people are the same at all. And you have to look at the person that's in front of you and determine where to adjust that person to get the effect. And it may be different for the same symptom in two different people.
I think that's very important about where we say, especially when we talk about the Merrick chart, it's kind of just a small educational
It's
tool.
an outline.
It's an outline. It's a simplicity. It's not a direct connection. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, so the next step is the Merrick chart and BJ Palmer developing it. This is nerve tracing. This is real important because we're still doing this today in practice. You know, they talked about the sensitivity of the spinous process, and we're taught in school like, oh, that T6 is positive. Oh, all right, well, let's trace that. Oh, yep, the muscles are tight here. Oh, I feel numbness and tingling. This is to do with motion palpation and all the other stuff, excuse me, that we're taught in school. And this nerve tracing that was invented by D.D. Palmer was crucial and vital in us being separate and distinct in the Morikubu trial in Wisconsin in 1907. This exact thing right here, nerve tracing, identified us as separate and distinct. And we all know this, who's practiced before, that there are many times, I'm going to say a patient comes in and you may analyze them for their challenge or problem. Of course, we're looking for a vertebral subluxation, and they may say, "Doc, I went to my primary care physician for this, or I went to the osteopath." And a lot of times you'll ask them, did they even touch it? Did they even examine it? No, they didn't even do that. And so it's quite mind-blowing a lot of times that even in today's world, the other physicians will not even touch these body parts. They'll just go with what they say and go from there. And it blows me away. I've even had dislocated shoulders before on children and adults where, you know, the physician didn't even touch or examine them. And I'm just mind blown at that by being a hands-on chiropractor where we touch and feel and sense and evaluate, you know, the feedback that's coming to us. So this nerve tracing is unique to us and very important. And although he invented it back then, it's still technically used today in everyday practices.
Well said. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And, you know, it's where we can't forget about this. You know, we use tools. I use surface EMG in my office. We have thermography. I use Titron, but nothing beats the sensitivity of touch. Let God's ability of innate intelligence communicate from that vibration. Those nerves have so much output. I think of this. we've done dissection. I was so fortunate to have done dissection multiple times on actual cadavers. To see and even if we've done some butchering of different animals too, but to see the size of the subcostal nerves, where in the world do those things go? They're vibratory. To me, I think they're sensory. They're sensory from the outside of, this is our vibratory cage. This is our antenna. And those nerves are sensory for the world around us, through our heart, right back to our spinal cord, right to the nerve with a big old, I mean, it's as big as my microphone nerve, cable. Like, that's a big nerve in the body. The amount of pressure on a much smaller nerve that's creating sciatic pain that I had the other day is much more minute than that big honking nerve. So you think about some of these nerves, of what they are doing, how much communication is going on there, and being able to tune in with radio GOD, INNATE, and we can really get a better understanding of the person that is in front of us, that is on that altar we call the chiropractic table. Mic drop.
We need to know when to and when not to adjust. And sometimes you expect to find one thing, and the body says, no, that's not what I want today. I only need occiput and atlas today, or I only need something. I only need a coccyx today, or and don't touch that thoracic spine. You can't let your brain get in the way. Sometimes you have to let innate talk to you.
That's so big. And where you just let go of technique or anything that is earthly, right? That's the hard part. I always go back to Clarence Gonstead, because when I first heard you become one with the bone, meant something different to me 10 years ago than it does now. Before, I'd put my mind's eye, I'd be right there at the bone, and I'm connecting to the bone. Now it almost gets scary, because I fall into and I become one, literally sharing codes. Remember, Pasquale used to talk about codes, and just becoming one with that bone. And sometimes you just feel like you just dropped into the universe. Anybody ever? Barry shaking his head. You guys know what I'm talking about. Once you literally let go, and it's not something you want to do in the very beginning of practice. You just graduate. You learn how to do those things.
It's the art.
You look for, it might not come right away. And sometimes it can get a little bit, wow, it's amazing. I'm in wow moments a lot, and I love that. To me, that's what service really is, right?
You need to learn. You need to learn to listen, and
learn to listen. And go ahead, Bob.
You learn the technique in school, and then you have to learn to listen, and
you got to learn how to apply it right. Yeah.
And then the other part of that is making sure your practice members notice the changes that sometimes are subtle. I used to love it when I'd adjust somebody, and all of a sudden they'd go, I said, did you notice you just took a deep breath? Did your breathing just change? And they'll go, oh, yeah. And they need to know that that's their body working the way it's supposed to. You have to remind them. They don't know.
They don't know. They're going to learn. Go ahead, Bob.
So I was 15 years old when I started playing guitar, and I had a really great teacher. And he had me learning how to do scales and all that kind of stuff. But then after a while, I was like, when am I going to do anything besides that, And then it came to a point where, and he said to me, and it ended up being true. He goes, after a while, you're going to learn all this. You're going to forget all this stuff and just play. and that's how we end up developing our own personal connection here, our own what am I call it, our technique,
Yeah, that's exactly right. Once you learn how to forget it, you got the basics, you got the muscle memory, right? Then you've got to forget and then just serve. Thank you for that. I'm a terrible musician, but I'm teaching my kids to play early in life for those exact reasons, right? Go ahead, Barry.
And just like Dee Dee said, no two people are the same, and also no two situations are the same each time they come back.
That's right.
Exactly.
Can't step in the same river twice.
You can't step in the same river twice, and no adjustment is in this. Once I put my hands on people, I pretty much know all the adjustments I've ever done with them. I really do. And you become one. You've shared the Pasquale taught about sharing codes. We're sharing codes when we serve. We're receiving. So I always put it in my mind, I want to give the best adjustment I possibly could, because I'd also like that back. It's not just being selfish, but who wouldn't want even the person on the table to get the best that I could possibly give, right? I feel the same way. I'm going to give the best so I could also get it back. I want that person to thrive, but we also deserve to thrive ourselves. Absolutely. The side effect of service is wealth. And whatever you determine that wealth is, I love the wealth of wellness. I want to be well and receive that. Hey, there's always good balance. We need balance in wealth and money for our lives as well. We can't just sacrifice, right? Have to have an exchange. All those things are important to learn. We have a new associate coming soon. And those are the type of things, he's coming from North Carolina. I'm really excited. He was on last week. And that's one thing we're solidifying. We realize is that it takes a commitment to show up at the door and unlock the door and walk in is nothing. But to create that key, to visualize the people coming in, to seeing the exchange of money is important, right? To see them served on the table, to see become one with that bone, to transform their life and tell as many people on earth the story of chiropractic, you will change the world. That's one thing isn't hammered home as much anymore. And I see that. That's where I see so many young chiropractors are so passionate now, because they're finding mentors that are inspiring them in such a way. And that's what I received, and you all received at some point in your life, of a chiropractor, or maybe even a non-chiropractor, that really inspired you to inspire others about chiropractic. That's what we're really here for. We can understand, hey, I mean, I get it. You're way better without a bone, without pressure on a nerve. Brainstem clear, you're way better. If I keep that information to myself, that's nothing. That's selfish. We have to spread these messages to the entire planet. And it's getting there. It's getting there. We're getting pushback from the other side. Oh, it's just musculoskeletal. That's great for you. At least you recognize that it exists, okay? Once your grandmother gets better and her life changes, and you realize your father can take a walk when he couldn't walk before, you realize it's so much more than that, okay? When you have people on your table and you serve them, they become something that they always dreamed of, that they never thought they could actually achieve. It's bigger than a pain in your neck. But you know what? It's much better to be adjusted when you have a pain in your neck than not to be, right? Who knows when someone has a problem and really God put them there for that reason, to be something bigger than they really are. Then it really isn't a problem. It's a spiritual adventure.
You know, you probably all have too. I had musicians that came to your office. I had a musician that said, you know, when after he got adjusted, the piano sounded different. Or another one said the horn sounded different. The tone was different. He could play differently after he'd been adjusted. You know, and the piano player asked to come and play at my wedding. He asked me if he could come and play at my wedding. You know, and there's a difference. You know, when the practice members notice the changes, sometimes you have to help them, but sometimes you'll be amazed at the things they'll tell you have changed in their lives after they've been adjusted, you know, when you've done your job.
You know, we have amazing people in our office, and, you know, sometimes they want to come in more than they need, right? They want to, I just want to come every day. You know, I want to be here all the time. Like, you know, you don't need to be here all the time. I can't just crunch you and take your money. I mean, that's not what it's for. Let's be real. They want to be bathed in that love. They want to be served, you know, but you're holding your adjustment. There's no need for you to be here all the time. Go ahead, Barry.
You know, my favorite quote is, "We never know how far reaching something we may think, say, or do will affect the lives of millions tomorrow." So I did a class on NCM scanning to some Sherman students at the Knee Chest Club, and you know, it's a challenge to teach how to scan with an NCM over a phone, correct?
Oh yeah.
So we tried to connect, and we had some challenges connecting. So I could not see the students. They could see me, but I couldn't see them. When I looked at my phone, I just saw the phone number that I was dialing. But anyway, long story short, we did that in November. Saturday afternoon, the last client that left, we're talking about universal intelligence and innate intelligence. And it was a future father-in-law of one of the students. And I sat there and went, I need to thank that student for having me speak to these students, because I have received 3 referrals from students' parents to come in and get checked. And this man was asymptomatic, in phenomenal shape, but his future son-in-law said, you need to go see this guy and get adjusted. And here he is. His life is, he was already, quote, healthy and doing good, but his life opened up and changed. And here we are talking about universal intelligence and innate intelligence when he's post-checked and leaving the office on Saturday. And I'm just like, that, you never know how far reaching. So you talking about this, and the people need to hear our message. You truly never know how far reaching and touching it is. And hopefully him and his future son-in-law are just going to have the greatest lives ever because of chiropractic.
Amen. They absolutely will. Yeah. You know, that's amazing. And that's the way it should be. Fantastic. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that.
And I just want to, Haig, I want to acknowledge you for doing this every week and putting it online, so that what we say here tonight is being repeated over and over. And as you said earlier, thousands of people are hearing it, and hopefully our message, we're spreading the message. And thank you for allowing that to happen.
Well, thank you. And now it's tens of thousands. How cool is that? Well, thank you for that acknowledgement. I really and truly appreciate that a lot, Alan. And, you know, it's spreading this word. It's for chiropractic. This is, like I say this often, we're creating history. We're creating history. We have already read. And, you know, Carol said this, you know, we studied this when we were in school. No, we didn't. We didn't study this. We didn't. I bought this book back, one of these. I got 3 or 4 copies of them, but we skimmed, read a couple of passages. No, we have now read, I guarantee you, more than 99.9%. There's a handful, and I bet you we could all name the people that have read more than this right now of D.D. Palmer's books. Most of them have written books about D.D. Palmer, okay? Or they teach PSC, right? So ultimately, you know, you are, you know, part of the 1% of the 1%, okay? So this is digging deep into our philosophy, which should be at the forefront. I want to go back because I just had a thought about B.J. Palmer. And there's a quote, if you guys might know where it is, because we talked about, goes back to DD, because when we're talking about there are no 2 people the same. And he said, I think it might have been Bigness of the Fellow Within. He was talking about a back problem. Man comes in with so-and-so problem. I adjusted him this way. It went away immediately. Another person comes in a few weeks later, same exact symptom. I adjusted him that same way. Took 2 or 3 weeks. And then again came in another person, same problem, adjusted them the same way, didn't go away at all. It was probably a much longer story. Does anybody know where to find that quote? Anybody remember that one? I'll find it. We'll have to look at the definitive guide to the green books from Simon Sensen. If you guys haven't listened to that one, I'm going to take it to this one, tag it to it. He goes through a lot of very important philosophy and history of chiropractic. He talked about where there was the split from mechanistic and vitalistic. And there was a point where they called BJ Palmer, oh, that's when BJ went crazy, because he wasn't doing as much research then, and he became much more spiritual. And that's where, he realized his dad had it going. You get out of that young phase of that I know everything or got to prove it. And, and I think that's where BJ really, his writings really blossomed. And especially, I love doing volume 39. All right. We're going to pick up around this area. I got to read a little bit more. I see these areas do say chiropractic a little bit more and principles of chiropractic. So, to deny that, to comprehend. Oh, we might read this next time. Okay. We might read that one. We're going to look through it a little bit. And let's start thinking if we want to take a break from DD, which I love DD. Sometimes take a little break and read something else for a while, or keep going for a few more chapters, which I think I would tend towards. But we'll talk about that in our next time. Let that sink in with everybody. How's that sound?
Okie doke.
Sounds good. What's up, Barry?
There's a reason why A Little Bit of Heaven was created. Some doctor had a lot of time on his hands to put all those shells together to make what he did.
Yeah.
So you were talking about that transition, and think about that, because BJ became a different being after that.
And any chiropractor that has worked and put the people before his own time, which I have done way too much. I have to say, a point of almost getting burned out. BJ was in service mode and was trying to save humanity, and he burned himself out. And that little bit of heaven, I have the book here too, saved his life so he can save more lives, right? So I honor BJ Palmer and DD Palmer for that. Go ahead, Barry.
Also, the green book on CD by Synapse. If you type up that quote or the phrase that you want, it could show up in the green books on CD-ROM. It'll be quick for you.
Yeah, I do have that in the PDFs. That's a really, really good idea. I think it's somewhere in Bigness. All right. We have reached the end of our time. And I am so happy to have shared time and space with all of you. And, you guys, if you're going to be at New Beginnings in May, I'll see you there in May. I can't wait to see you. And, but I'll see you next Tuesday as well, everybody. And we'll keep moving forward and keep serving. All right. Bless you guys. Have a great night. See you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.